What do all of those relationships have in common? Well, one, it started with lust, and two, it is no longer existence. It's no longer here.
I also think that we have to understand that just because you've been sleeping with somebody for a while, that doesn't make it a good reason to get into an actual relationship with them.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Deal Podcast with myself, Brandon Haley, and our very important co-host,
Mr. Cleon Deal. Every day's a good day.
Welcome, man. How is the week treating you?
It's been a long one, you know.
It's been a long year.
We're just working. Working.
I think by the time this one comes out, the Super Bowl is going to be playing.
Who you got?
I'm going with the refs. 3P for Kansas City.
Kansas City. Huh?
I would hope for my dog Isaiah Rodgers to.
Shout out
Isaiah Rodgers. I would hope for him to get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to overcome. They love Taylor Swift, man. And if Taylor Swift can get her third Super Bowl ring, they would love that. Or I think her second since they've been dating. I'm not sure, but
is it? I don't know.
Team Taylor Swift. That's what Roger Goodell likes, and whatever he's going to do, everything in his power to keep her happy. And her and Travis Kelce. How do you feel about that relationship?
I mean, as long as it works, you know. Unfortunately, I've been much more informed than I'd like to be about his dating history. So she change.
It is, which brings us to like today's topic: no love, lust. And you know how sometimes you probably shouldn't date your type. You know, maybe your type isn't
they're bad for you.
Your right type. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes who you choose for yourself isn't who God chooses for you. And this week, that leads us to the deal of the day. What is it today, my man?
So today's deal of the day, since we are talking about, lust, obviously a very, very prevalent thing today. Colossians 3:5 says to put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, sexual immorality, and I can't talk today. All right. Put to death, therefore,
just cancel the whole episode.
Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry.
What is idolatry? Like adultery?
No, idolatry. So idolatry is having an idol, something else that you're worshiping.
Basically saying you're worshiping lust instead of worshiping God.
You're putting something before something that you're not, that you're supposed to be.
You're supposed to be seeking,
idolizing that
thing.
First. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. What does that mean to you? I don't know. The Bible always has it's why the Bible's so hard to read, because it has all these big words. And I'm like, so, ID what?
Basically, you know what it's saying is the try and put to death those feelings that make you want to do things that are in direct contradiction on what the commandments are, which is obviously not to have sex before marriage, and then also not to commit adultery, which lust has a huge part in both of those things.
Which adultery is? Explain adultery to us.
So adultery is you looking for solace outside of your relationship. So if you are outside of your marriage, relationship, your marriage, going and finding somebody else to have a little bit of fun with.
100%. You know, you on the board, you forgot Deal.
Did I?
You forgot your own last name, brother.
I just put the real, man. We're just talking about
deal,
the real,
baby.
The real one. Just the real, man.
Got you. So that is important because it's tough. It's a tough thing. Like, first of all, knowing and understanding like what lust is versus what love is, sometimes I feel like can get really confusing. And I've definitely had my own problems with it,
battles, man.
a lot of battles. And
Yeah.
what I've come to realize is, everybody always says like, the Bible is difficult to read. As you can say, you just read a verse from it, and it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
You got to break it down. But just being able to take a step back and be alone in your singleness is very important to build that relationship with God, to understand where you're at with your relationship with lust.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like, it's hard, but like the Bible says, seek first his kingdom, not seek first her, whatever
Temple, her.
It's not seek first her,
whatever it is. Whatever.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what you should be seeking first. And, we wanted to talk about this topic because you got Valentine's Day this month, and lust is, it's a great thing to feel temporarily,
right?
But it's not a long-term thing. So what is lust to you?
So lust, number one, by definition, it's a strong and physical and emotional desire, typically characterized by intense sexual attraction and wanting. So, but to me in general, obviously, is wanting somebody strictly physically. That's kind of like the main thing. Kind of like, obviously, when you first meet somebody during what we call, I guess, the honeymoon phase, when the only thing you want to do is get each other alone and do whatever else. That's a very heavy portion of starting with things with lust, right? Lust itself is unfortunately something that is a driving force behind a lot of bad decisions, and a lot of catastrophes that happen really mainly in your life, right? Because think about the dumbest things you've done while horny.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
And because of lust, like, there are whole industries that thrive based on your inability to seek first his kingdom.
That is very true.
Porn industry.
Yes.
Alcohol industry. I mean, we've been there many years. And what is it? If you have a table of full of guys, what's the first thing they're gonna? Where the girl? Where the girls? Where the girls?
Can you bring some girls to us?
Can you bring me some girls?
Like, you ain't come with them, man. That's crazy.
They never do. They want to go there and find them, and it's always like that instant dopamine. Like, to me, that's what lust is. It's that instant gratification of dopamine, because it does a lot of things for you.
Right.
One, it's a physical release. It helps you momentarily with stress, and it helps boost your self-esteem. So, like, the insecurities that you may have, if you're lusting and you get with somebody, like, that could temporarily solve all of those until that girl realizes that you suck and she leaves, and it's just a temporary thing for her as well.
That's funny, because that makes sense, right? Because sometimes, obviously, like, for people who aren't, especially like for guys who aren't crazy confident on a daily basis, sometimes they get a rush of confidence in going and deciding to pursue a woman, just in an instant. And so you get confidence from that feeling of lust. Like, I'm gonna let this drive me and lead me, typically to destruction. It's typically not going to end well from there.
What is like a relationship you've had that you look back on and it was more lustful than full of love? Because I feel like this is it's a difficult thing when you're not super self-aware. Is we end up starting a lot of these relationships based out of lust, and then we call it love down the road.
Well, and that kind of goes back to something that we discussed. I think it was with Parisa, in terms of how things are starting. And like we said, today's culture of dating is we meet, we have sex, and then we decide if we like each other to keep seeing each other during daylight hours.
Test drive the car. Oh, I really like the car, so I want to lease, or I want to buy the car.
Exactly. And so, I mean, for me, unfortunately, I found myself in a sticky situation regarding that. And really, when we talk about our instances where we were maybe involved with more than one girl at a time, which obviously 100% driven by lust, or getting involved with somebody who that this probably ain't gonna last long term, but they look like we could have a lot of fun.
Right. But
So,
then what happens?
well,
Don't you gain feelings for them usually?
it depends on who you are.
Yeah, that's true. And then that also like kind of brings up another good topic because you're talking about like how sometimes guys want to be with multiple women at once. And
Yeah,
I used to think I was going to be that guy, like
yeah.
the polygamy. Is that what?
Po-
What's the how you?
polygamy.
Yeah, polygamy. Sorry, the big words get me
Yeah,
every
yeah,
time, guys.
we're working on it.
But I thought like I thought love wasn't going to be for me, and I was just going to love multiple women, and that was going to be my life. There was a moment in time where I really thought that.
Okay.
And
so what snapped you out of that?
I was in Vegas.
Yeah,
there was a moment in time, and it that comes from my like lustful nature. That comes from lustful nature.
Right.
And I thought that that's what I was going to do. And as long as they knew that I wasn't going to be on the market solely for them, then it was going to be okay. And that's what I thought. What changed was that lust led to a relationship that I called love. And then that relationship obviously ended poorly because of all my lustful actions at the beginning.
Right.
Led me to create more feelings. And then I'm like, oh, no. I'll settle down. I like this monogamy thing. I only want to be with you.
Right.
But it was like the lust that brought me there and the thinking of like, oh, maybe I can talk to multiple girls at once. I can have multiple girlfriends. I can afford it. I like the lifestyle of going out, partying, and doing all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, then that lust caught me to catch feelings. And then that lust turned to love. And then that love turned into the getting locked up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so it's like how things start are super important. And any kind of failed thing that happens to you is like lust is literally the self-destruction of yourself.
Yeah, I think that what we have to try our best to do is not lust ourselves into love.
And I was terrible at that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's just part of the growing pains, especially being a man. Because unfortunately, being a man, we seem to make decisions driven based off of that more than women do. Where they're talking, we think with our heads, but not this one, but
the wrong one.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And it, like you said, it leads us down a lot of unfortunate paths and into situations which we've never thought that we'd be in. You know what I'm saying?
I never thought that, me trying to talk to multiple women and then that lust turned into love if you think that it can do that. And then it turned into, hey, getting your Miranda rights read to you.
Yeah. Part of it is that you have to, how do I say this? You got to try your best. Well, really mental discipline. And you've got to be able to acknowledge that although you are attractive, I don't have to be attracted to you. I don't have to go and do things super serious. I can recognize you as attractive and then leave you over there and leave you alone. And that's a tough thing because like we see all the time, you'll see a guy go talk to this girl. Oh, and that's not working. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna go talk to this. I'm just gonna go talk to this one. And so I get it because that's what they're driven by. They have one goal in mind, and that's to see, you know what I'm saying, see what it's like.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely is difficult, and through growth and seeking first his kingdom, I'm just going to keep saying that. So it is my constant reminder to seek his kingdom first and not seek the lustful things and thoughts that go through my head, because I'm single. So I, by all means, have all the power and quote unquote right to do so, but I don't. And the reason being is because I know what those actions have gotten me in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeking those actions anymore.
Yeah.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah. So you had to try 2 or 3 times just to make sure it didn't work.
I literally did. And that goes what we talk about with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is like, we're talking about his type, or his type definitely ain't white, skinny girls. It definitely wasn't. You know, he had like a reality TV show or something, and it definitely was no white skinny girls. He definitely had a different type than that. But that just goes to show you, like, sometime if this works. I think they did recently get engaged. I think that was real news. I'm
Did
not
that?
sure. I think it was real news. I'm not
I didn't even
100%
see
sure.
that.
It could have been fake news. I don't know. Can't believe everything you see. Not everything
Yeah, I
is
don't know.
as it seems.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you that, your plan isn't always God's plan, and that you don't know your type is not the best thing for you sometimes. And if you tried your quote unquote type, um, and it's not working, then maybe you got to be a little bit more receptive to other people. And this goes for males and females. For me, my type, brunettes, Latinas, thick Latinas will not be deported. I'll save you all. No, but that doesn't mean you should just turn away all white girls. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. If your type is tall, dark, and handsome, that doesn't mean you should turn down the short little white boy like me. You know what I'm
This
saying?
is a promotion
So
for vertically challenged men.
self promotion for the for all the vertically challenged men.
So let me ask you a question here. Do you feel like lust could be a positive force in a long term relationship?
Oh God, no. I don't know. No. Lust. So lust. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say yeah, but it's never worked out with me.
Right.
Lust is that quick dopamine hit that you get to make yourself feel good and the other person feel good.
Right. Well,
Like,
so what about lust for your longtime partner? Because obviously people get into marriages and they talk about how the
but what
spark is
is
gone.
what is lust?
I guess that's what the question is, right?
Lust is that quick dopamine hit. That's
Right.
all it is. It's a temporary thing.
Mhm.
So it's not a long-term answer to a short-term problem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're having those problems, it's not you want to lust them. You want to figure out ways. Yeah, you want to figure out ways to create that serotonin and create that joy with them in a long-term relationship. And when you're in a long-term relationship, like, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're not always going to want to hook up with them every single time that they want to hook up with you. It's just not how it works. But a lot of people say, and this goes on like the monogamy thing, a real man isn't somebody who loves 1,000 women. A real man is somebody who can love one woman 1,000 times.
What if I just have a lot of love? I'm just joking. I'm just joking, guys.
It's
please.
not love, it's lust. Because what's easy is that. What's easy is going from girl to girl, because you're never really going to build any kind of real and genuine relationship. That's the easy thing to do. Say, hey, she's high, let me hook up with her. Make her feel good, make me feel good in this temporary thing that we call lust. And maybe it'll turn into love, and then it's love for 6 months, and then it's bang, I'm back to the same thing. It's because we get into the cycle of that physical attraction, like seeing them. Oh man, I gotta have her.
Yeah.
I gotta be with her. And then
Need
you get
that hashtag.
Then you get right. Then you get with her. You now have a soul tie with her.
Yeah.
Because you hooked up with her. And you continuously do it. Then it was good. You test drove the car, and it was an amazing vehicle.
Great vehicle.
It went really fast.
Great seats.
It rode smoothly.
Leather interior.
Yeah, special edition, like whatever it may be, one of a kind. You really wanted that vehicle. Now you're with it until the vehicle starts getting engine problems, and then you're like, let me just get a new one.
Yeah.
And that's like the constant cycle of what guys like to do. Yeah. Women, I can't really speak on that, but I'm just giving you the ideology of a man at this point.
So what for you? Let's have some fun. What's the one of the more outrageous things that you've done in a moment where you let the lust win, for lack of better words?
Oh my God. Well, I've been a lot more disciplined now this time around, just because of how I've looked at things in the past. Well, I mean, after the last relationship, well, not the last one, but the one before that, I got blamed for so many things. And it was like, you got blamed for hooking up with her, looking at this girl, looking at this. And you know what happened after that relationship ended?
You did all the stuff.
The everything I got blamed for, I pursued everything. I'm like, hey, maybe she was right. Oh, maybe they like me too because she thinks that they do. So maybe they do. And I basically did everything that I got accused of doing.
Wow.
And that was the lust winning.
It's like a combination of spite and lust mixed together.
A little spite, but both of them made me feel good.
Yeah.
And that just came from not being as smart as you should. Of course, it felt good in the moment, but then it created even bigger problems.
Yeah.
And then I got to another relationship. The temporary feeling, the temporary dopamine hits that I was getting from doing it created even bigger problems that added more stress to my life than I would have liked.
Yeah. So the thing is, because I think the tough thing is, especially when you are single and not committed to anybody and you're interested in multiple parties, it becomes difficult to know where that line is about what I should and should not be doing. Because obviously, if you're single, you have the opportunity to then weigh your options at that point. But at what point should I? This is a little bit too much weighing on this option.
What point should you practice celibacy?
Oh God. Okay. All right. Let's talk about that.
I'll talk personally.
Yeah.
My barber for 10 years, who was a pastor, used to be a pastor, been cutting my hair since high school, lives in Ocala. After the last relationship, I was like, he's like, don't go and get into another. I'm like, I'm not that kind of guy. That was the first time I ever went from relationship to relationship, but that was because like I was in a very dark time. So I'm like, no, like I'm not going to jump into one. I'm not going to date another person anytime soon. Like, no, I need time to heal and recover. He's like, no, that's not what I mean. I'm like,
what do you mean?
What do you mean, brother? Right. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you just because you're not dating them doesn't mean you're single. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you told me all the women when you talk to them and when you start catching feelings and when you have sex with them and hook up with them and you start catching feelings, even though you don't date them, like you're still not single because you're entertaining them. And I was like, you got a good point. He's like, and then he's just basically saying like, you keep choosing and you're not letting God choose. So he's like, if you can't choose something that's wrong for you and ask God to bless it. You got to wait for him to send you what's right for you. And I said the question, which everybody likes to know this, is like, when do you know?
Yeah. When do you know?
How do you know and when do you know? And he just said, you'll know. It'll be easy. He said, you'll know. It'll be easy.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't really know what that means. So that's when I took a step back. It's like, yeah, it's cut off everybody essentially. Maybe ask people here and there if they want to go on a date just to see if there's a vibe. But it's so funny when you seek first his kingdom, the way the guy's going to work is, and I was telling you this a little bit earlier, it's like, if you find somebody attractive and like you ask them out on a date and they're like all about it, but then the date never happens because of whatever it is. I'm just like, the old me would keep trying.
Right.
It'd be like, oh, I know for a fact when somebody's in my presence, they're going to like me just because charisma, whatever it may be, I can make people laugh. Like I know if you hang out with me, I'm going to get you to like me no matter what. And the lust part is an extra benefit. I'm going to figure out one of those ways. Either I'm going to be funny, the charisma, or that part. Like I'm going to figure out a way to make you like me. So I would force the hangout or the meetup because I knew I could convince anybody essentially. Right. And now I'm just like, if something minor happens, it doesn't work out, or the date or whatever it may be never happens, I'm just like, oh, God knows something I don't know, and I'm going to leave it at that. Right. I don't need to know anything else because he knows it.
Yeah.
And that's just how I see it now. So when something does work out and then you do start to build a genuine connection, don't let the lustful mind win. Still seek first his kingdom, even though if you are starting to talk to another girl or whatever it may be. If that's your goal of monogamy, getting married, having a sustainable relationship,
right,
that's what you should be practicing. Just like I think it's in the Bible where I see Michael Todd say something about being a wife before you're an actual wife.
Right.
Like a
dressing for the job you want, not the one you have.
Exactly. Like the husband isn't going to choose you because you have potential to be a wife.
Mm-hmm.
The husband is going to choose you because you already are a wife now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just flipped that and took it the same way. It's like, I need to be the husband now if that's what I want to be.
Right.
Because when the wife comes, I'm going to have to be ready.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of took that ideology and ran with it to be like, all right,
yeah,
don't let the lustful mind win.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you guys, it's not easy. It's Jesus Christ.
It's tough,
easy.
Man.
There's temptation out there all the time. And it's not like I'm just in my bedroom for 7 days out the week, hidden from the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're out in the
outside,
world.
Man.
We are outside in the world.
Yeah.
And just, just like I do it with the drinking.
Yeah.
One day at a time. Just not today.
Mm-hmm.
And just got to keep saying that, keep praying, and y'all pray for me.
Just not today.
You guys hear some of my story that I got going on. There's always some internal battle with lust and love. And it's, which one do you want more?
Depends on the day.
But you also got to use discipline. And discipline is what's the definition of discipline? Doing what you don't want to do now so you can have what you want down the road.
Right.
So if you want a wife and kids and that kind of life of monogamy, then you shouldn't be feeding your temporary wants now.
Right.
So starve the wants or starve your current wants for your future wants.
Yeah.
So if that's what, if you don't care about that, then by all means, man, lust it up.
Lust it up.
Just make sure your intentions are clear.
Yeah.
Make sure your intentions with the other party are clear, because some nice female might not be as self-aware, and she might think that, you want to be with her, and you guys hooked up before you started dating and created that emotional bond, and you just created a physical bond first. And then, you lead her on, and then you get rid of her. That's not cool either. Well, so make your intentions always clear.
So to be fair, as somebody who's made their intentions clear on multiple occasions,
I know we're going to go here.
I want to be clear that I'm with you on everything. But obviously, as far as making your intentions clear, when this is your intention to involve yourself in lust and not in love, I've had instances where I have relayed that, and unfortunately that communication, although proper and although clear, was not heeded. And so obviously what happens is that I'm now requested of something that I have already demonstrated and verbalized that I'm not in the space for right now. So what do you do in that situation? How do you handle that?
Well, that's where you shouldn't partake in it. But if you are, nothing's ever going to be perfect. You got to just roll with the punches as they come, because you're still feeding each other's ego, dopamine, brain chemicals, oxytocin, all that stuff is getting released. And women have a lot of hormones. Your testosterone gets boosted when you engage in these kind of things. So you're both going to feel really good.
Right.
And what you're both going to end up doing is associating that good feeling with that other person. So you will, number one, you'll have to keep reinforcing what you said, making your intentions clear. You'll have to keep doing that.
Right.
And then if you feel that that's not enough, then you'll have to separate yourself from the situation, because at the end of the day, you are playing with someone's life. You know what I'm saying? They have feelings too, and you can't keep just playing with that.
Yeah. So also, I think part of it is that just like I have to make my own decisions with that, you have to make your own as well. So don't put yourself in something that you're not supposed to be in. But speaking on this topic, in my personal experience about, like you were talking about, deciding to be a husband before you're a husband. For me, I went through a space of where life obviously got messy. We understand, life got a lot messy and
messy, bro.
Yeah, real messy. And so there was a time where I made a decision for me, and I was like, all right, so I'm going to make it a point to not necessarily get into a relationship, but to make sure that I'm only involving myself with one person at a time, and just basically making a conjoined effort. Because really, a lot of times, and maybe this is my fault, I'm just not that aware all the time in my past life.
Well, emotions can help make you less aware.
Which
And
they,
that's what happens.
well, the thing is just like, how do I say this? So basically, for me, like any time where I ended up in a lustful interaction with more than one person, in that time, I was never aware enough to see it happening as it was happening. It wasn't until I was already in it to which I realized, I'm like, oh, I didn't mean for it to really get here. But now that I'm here, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna enjoy it while I'm here. And so it's one of those things about being aware. I said that it's funny. So I use this term a few years ago when I was on the No Clearance podcast. I said you have to be, and this is more so about when you actually are in a relationship to stop, to not cheat. But I was talking about basically being anti-infidelity and not infidelity indifferent. And so basically what I mean by that is that when you're anti something, you're looking for every way to not be around it, right? So if you're a vegan, you go into a place, do you guys have vegan options? What kind of oil do you cook this in? Is anything touching anything back there? Because I need to make sure that nothing that I consume has any bearings or is anywhere near this thing that I don't want. And that's how you have to be when it comes to something like lust. And if you're trying to get away from that, you have to be on the lookout for anything. Oh, this girl rubbed my hand just a little bit too long when I shook it. I need to get away from her. Oh, she's looking at me just a little, she's smiling just a little bit too hard. I don't think I should be around her. Our conversations they're not inappropriate, but they're just slightly flirtatious. And I don't know what her intentions are. I need to get away from that. Whereas if you're indifferent towards it, what happens is that to you, you're just having a friendly interaction without really looking at where it's leading to. So, you're having these conversations and then sometimes maybe you're talking a little bit too late at night, but to you, you're just having a conversation. But obviously those things transition into other things. And then as things progress, you end up in a situation which you weren't anticipating. And that's how I ended up in a lot of the situations that I was in, because I wasn't really looking for it.
I think I started doing that, what you're talking about, like subconsciously.
Yeah.
I find myself flirting more.
Yeah.
But with no intention of ever doing it.
No intentions of ever doing it.
So it's like, I'm cool because, I flirted. That's all I need to do. Yeah, and that's it.
That's all for you. But for her.
Let's leave it as it is. Flirt with you, say a couple things.
Right.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not trying to get involved physically or anything else with that.
You're just there to have a good time. I enjoy the conversation. But obviously, like we said, that transitions to that one interaction leads to another interaction, leads to another. And then you're like, well, I mean, maybe I could maybe we could hang out. We'd probably have fun if we hung out. And then obviously, we know what happens.
Can you look back on all your relationships and see which one started with lust and how those turned out versus the ones that didn't start with lust?
Well, none of them are active. Well, besides the current one, but basically, how do I say this? So yeah, I mean, yeah. So looking back on it, looking at the girls that I got involved with, there were, like you said, it started with a strictly physical attraction. So and it didn't go well because obviously that was the basis of what our interaction was. So what I will say, the biggest difference in terms of, because obviously they all ended, but the biggest difference in how those ended is I think the relationship with that person now. And let's say if I were to have a sit down conversation with any of these young ladies, what would be brought up during that conversation? How would that conversation go? And I think that has a lot to do with how it started. So because it started like that, there was a lot of pain and aggravation because that's what comes with lust, because it's a very large and emotional feeling. It's only going to drive toward more large and emotional things. So basically, if I were to go and talk to those young ladies, obviously what we would talk about is obviously how it started, and then the arguments and the disputes we had around typically any sort of physical interaction that we had. So that, or maybe me with somebody else, it just really depends on the day. But the difference between that and something that started more, because I'm a conversationalist, I just like talking to people. So that was my thing with girls. I genuinely enjoy it. So there were things like with one, I probably say some years ago, that just started with just basic conversation. And so that I'm trying to be careful with about how I trying to be careful with how I verbalize this. What I would say is that her and I's relationship, if we were to, let's say, speak today, will be a lot more cordial and a softer conversation than it would be with anybody else, because of how it started versus how it ended and anything that happened in between. Um, but yeah, it's certainly a very, very large difference, and certainly a very large feeling. Like, if you were to see that person today, what's your initial and immediate reaction? Are you happy to see them, knowing everything that happened? Or
I think if I see any of my exes, I'm just happy to see that they'd be happy, and
yeah,
hopefully,
that's a very grown up thing for you to say.
yeah, hopefully they've grown,
Yeah,
because not all of them ended pretty,
yeah,
except for the very last one. But yeah, if I seen them, obviously you're gonna have you feel some type of way. But at the end of the
yeah,
day, that's all you can really hope for. And because when you're in those relationships, and even if you lusted before you loved, because lust is that dopamine thing, you can only at the time you could only love them at the capabilities that you understand love.
yeah. Which
So,
unfortunately at that time might have only been lust.
and it might have been what it was. But
Yeah,
how love is like lust is the short, quick dopamine hit.
yeah,
Can lust turn into love?
maybe, but it's, what is it built
I
on?
can't.
What is the love
What
built
is it
on?
built on? Yeah, and basically, love develops over time and involves emotional depth, leading to long-term relationships and commitment. You don't get that by lusting early.
Mm-hmm.
You get physical connection and you get quick
Absolutely.
dopamine hits.
Yeah.
But what happens when that emotional or that physical connection isn't as strong as it once was, and that's what your relationship was built upon.
Yeah. But if you really, and that's the other
So
thing,
if you
because it's like,
create that emotional depth of the relationship, that's going to lead to a long term and a better understanding. When I
yeah,
look back on all my, except for the first relationship I was ever in when I was younger,
mm-hmm.
they all started like when my barber told me this, I started to look back because like I said, I used to think that I'm like, nah, we're human beings, we got needs. We're gonna use each other,
That's
and then
what you
if
told the barber pastor.
I ain't telling that part.
Okay.
I was once he told me
Yeah.
that, then I was doing self reflection,
Right. Okay. All right.
and like I said, I used to think that guys could just have sex with any girl and never ever catch feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but I came to realize, like, how did my relationship start?
Mm-hmm.
All the girls that I ever quote unquote fell in love with, what did it start with? It
Yeah.
started when you always hear this, you're always going to find the one when you're not looking. Of course, it started when I wasn't looking for
Right.
love. I was looking for lust,
Right.
and I found that. And then it turned into love, if you want to call it that. But you start looking back on all those, and it's like, okay, yeah, did that before we dated, did that before we dated with her, and did that before we dated. And it turned into a relationship, which at the time, cool, was a quote unquote beautiful thing. But you start to look back at it, and it's like,
Yeah.
what do all of those relationships have in common?
Yeah.
Well, one, it started with lust.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it is no longer existent.
Yeah.
It's no longer here.
I also think that we have to understand that just because you've been sleeping with somebody for a while, that doesn't make it a good reason to get into an actual relationship with them. Because you guys, if you haven't talked about anything, you haven't had any real conversations or about anything, just because I get it, because that usually is the main factor. Like, oh, you guys aren't dating yet. You guys have been doing this for this
really
long.
is, yeah.
And I'm just like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, if you want to date somebody, are you talking about building a real relationship? Just because you've been sleeping together for 3 months, ideally you've had good conversation at that point. Ideally, you know each other a little bit, but that's not a good reason to get into a relationship with somebody. If you don't want lust and you do want love, then you have to be intentional. Wow, that's not the word. Intentional.
We can create words.
Intentional is crazy. You have to be intentional.
I like that word, intentional.
You have to be intentional about it. You have to really take the time to get deeper and really know that person if you want that to transition there, if that's what your goal is. So, like I said, I think a lot of people end up in the relationships just like you did, just like I have.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you have to be intentional about that and getting to know the person that you're with just on a deeper level. Wow, I cannot talk today. Getting to know them on a deeper level in order for that relationship to be able to transition from that lust to love. Being with somebody for a long period of time doesn't mean you know anything about them. If you haven't taken the time, really, and that's a good question to ask yourself, is what do I know about this person before I decide to make them something that really means something to me? What do I know about them?
And I feel like we live in this social media age, and I got caught up in it too, of having a beautiful girl that found me attractive and we were together, but it all started with lust. And then we're in this social media age to where we are always together, we look good on social media, everything looks great, but behind closed doors, it's super rocky. Even from 3 months on. And it's part of the reason it was rocky is because the lust stuff. And once that dopamine starts to fade, once you're not getting the same dopamine hits from doing it, then you really gotta
what are you left with after
you really
that?
gotta learn this person. And you done bonded with all the oxytocin that you created through all those sexual encounters, and then that starts to fade because sex ain't the same. Then it's like, all right, now where am I at mentally? And it's just we get stuck in that social media, like you were saying, is like, oh, you guys have been together for so long, even just because you're hanging out. Yeah, you just because something is lustful doesn't mean it needs to be loveful. If that even makes sense.
I agree.
It sounded good. We're making up things
we're just
today,
making stuff up. But yeah, I agree with that 100%. Just because it is that doesn't mean it's meant to transition to this next thing. Not every I was about to say something stupid. Not every Pokemon gets to evolve. Pikachu was only Pikachu that whole time. It just was never meant to get to that next level.
Yeah. If you go on online, there's just so much scientific stuff about like your brain and the amygdala, which is like how you make this, or your frontal cortex and your amygdala, which is like what makes your decisions, and then like the feelings of emotions and stuff. You go online, there's a lot of scientific stuff that you can actually look in there, but basically it's saying love is long lasting and deep. Lust is short term and intense. The purpose for lust is sexual attraction and reproduction, but you shouldn't use it for reproduction, in my opinion. Love, emotional bonding, and long-term attachment. Hormones that you get from lust is testosterone, estrogen, and dopamine. What you get from love is oxytocin, dopamine, and vasopressin, which is what strengthens long-term attachment and monogamy. So those are the two different things of love and lust. If you really want to dive down and find science stuff about it, step one is being aware of it. If you want to be the lustful guy, sure, no love lost. That's the title. No love lost. No love lost too. But if you want to be the person that wants to be in a monogamous relationship, wants to be married, wants to have kids, create another generation after you, then those are the questions. Those are the
a healthy one.
Yeah, a healthy one.
Yeah.
You're going to have that self-reflection with you, just like I did. And I could do. You got free will. You got free will. I could do one of two things.
Absolutely. Every single day of the week, you can either do it or don't.
Go and invite people over at all times of the day or whatever, and dabble in all the used cars and see which one I like best. Or I could wait for the right deal, the real deal.
So to wrap things up here,
no pun intended. That was good.
So your final thoughts on lust versus love, lust transitioning to love, or lust and not love, no love, lust. Your final thoughts on that?
No love, lust. Final thoughts. Have that internal self-reflection with you. If you are that kind of person that you're not seeking first God's kingdom, and you're seeking first her, you know what, then have that self-reflection and understand that you're not going to create something that is lasting and loving. Because what you can't do is you can't pick your type, make them fall in love or lust with you, and then ask God to bless that. It's not going to happen. It's not how it works. You can't ask God to bless what was sent to your life to be a distraction.
There it is.
And you have to understand that. I didn't make that up. Someone else told me that, and it hit, and it's still stuck with me to this day.
Yeah.
Even though it was just a couple weeks ago. But I'm like, man, he is talking to me, and it's just reaffirming what I already know from God. So maybe it's somebody listening to this going through the same situation that I'm going through, and you just need to hear it too.
Yeah.
Wait for him to send the right one.
There you go.
And he will. Don't get involved with the lust stuff, because I tell you what, all the relationships you listened to in episode 4, except for the very first one, that all started with what? Lust. And where are they now?
Yeah.
Listen to the episode to find out. You know what I'm saying? So that's my takeaway on it. It is hard. There's temptation everywhere. It is super hard. And we're about to get ready to go into work and probably see some more temptation. But just got to remind yourself, is it what you want now, or is it what you want down the road?
There we go.
What's your takeaway?
So real quick, lust is a fleeting flame, as we know. It's only temporary. It's only going to last for so long. So ideally, we don't give in to the feelings of instant gratification, even though we are in this microwave generation. Understand that if you want something long-term and long-lasting with longevity, that's going to be, that's going to withhold you. Understand that that's not the way to be. I understand that those feelings will happen, and you're going to do a lot of stupid things, because just like it says, when lust speaks, reason is silent. So when lust is speaking, that's the only thing you listening to at that point. And you're going to find yourself in a lot of situations that are very avoidable. Learn from me, learn from Brandon, and don't do it. Don't try your best to not be led by lust, but to always lead with love. And that's just in your everyday life.
And sometimes that's just going to take patience. And learn from the mistakes that we went through. But sometimes you got to go through it yourself.
Yeah.
But let it only be one time. Have that self-reflection. Yeah. It wasn't until my barber said that to me that I really sat down and hold up. This is how they all started. Yeah. Okay, so what am I not going to do next time? I'm not going to do that.
There we go.
Be the husband before the husband. Love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I don't know hopefully the Chiefs didn't repeat.